excited to have you guys. This talk is called Break the Chains, How Creative Futures is Unearthing the Next Generation of Leaders. And Jai and I met through our mutual friend, Bill Silva and Michael Seversky. Shout out to Michael and Bill. Bill was actually a speaker on our last summit last month. And then when I asked him who he thought I should have up next, he mentioned Jai. And so Jai and Yahniie are the co-founders of Creative Futures. I'm going to let Jai take over, maybe give a quick introduction into what Creative Futures is all about, and you guys can jump in and take it away from there.
Absolutely. Thanks, Josh. Thanks for having us. I'm excited today because it's been an interesting couple of months. You know, I want to go very, very quickly about what Creative Futures is, but essentially, you know, our whole mission was to help break cycles of systemic inequality by providing opportunities, support, and a network to people from underserved and disadvantaged communities to become the next generation of creative industry leaders. Because, you know, one thing that I learned, and I'll go into my history a tiny bit, but a lot of entry-level jobs, internships in the creative industries, whether it's music, whether it's film, whether it's sports, they kind of go to the same person. They go to people that were, you know, lucky enough to be born into a good circumstance and have a connected family, or go to a certain school or college, right? Or just have connections. A lot of those sorts of jobs go to those people. But what happens is you exclude a large number of the population, and you really exclude a large number of talent, right? Because this is kind of a cliche to say, but talent is distributed equally, but opportunity isn't. So we essentially started Creative Futures as a way to create opportunities for people that haven't had access, that have a lot to say, that have these voices. And when we talk about diversity, we don't talk about it as the color of someone's skin, or their gender, or their sexual orientation. We talk about it about lived experience, right? What is their lived experience, and their thoughts and perspectives and insights that they can bring into an organization. They're actually an asset. It's a value to company. So we started this program. Basically, we run a 12-week program of workshops. We have mentors from companies like Apple and Google and Vice and Netflix and the Rams and the New York Times. And then everyone that comes through our program, like everyone you're seeing today, Francine, Yahniie, and Josh, get guaranteed what we call a futureship, which is paid internship at companies like the LA Lakers, Spotify, the World Surf League, and a host of others. But one thing that happened when we started the program is we would go around to companies, big record companies, and say, hey, we've got this talent that is looking for an entry-level opportunity to get an internship at your organization. And we kept getting pushback from companies being like, are they in college, right? And we'd be saying, well, no, because that's why we're working with this population, you know, system impacted populations, because for whatever reason, they don't have the privilege to attend college. But also, why do you need a 4-year college degree to become a marketing coordinator at a record label earning $40K a year, right? It doesn't make any sense. And I know the chip on my shoulder is, you know, I'm born and raised in Australia, you know, son of an Indonesian immigrant. My dad finished school when he was in 8th grade, never earned over $50,000 a year, grew up very low middle class, have no family connections. I did not go to university, I did not go to college, but I started a record label in Oz, and at 16. And when I was 24, I sold that to EMI. And I remember before I did that, I thought, I'm going to go to university. I'm going to learn about what it takes to work at a music company. And what I realized, it's not about that at all. It's about experience. It's about putting on shows and managing bands and finding, you know, just doing stuff. And you don't get that experience, so the doors aren't open. So Creative Futures is about that, opening doors for people and then supporting our talent as they go through the program. So now I kind of want to introduce you to some of our fellows who have gone through the program to talk about their experiences of now having made the jump into kind of, you know, the creative industries where they all hold full-time jobs. And talking about what those environments look like, talking about diversity, talking about inclusion, and talking about equity. Because as you can imagine, like I said, we were knocking on doors a couple of years ago doing this, and people say, now's not the time, now's not the time. Fast forward to George Floyd, and now the time is everyone's calling, which is a good thing. But it's also, we're noticing that even though companies want to now bring diverse talent into the room, a lot of them don't really know how. A lot of them don't necessarily have environments that are welcoming or belonging or empathetic cultures, because they've been bringing the same people that look and sound the same in for so long. Our kind of job is like, how can we even help these organizations create these more empathetic cultures? And the way that we do it is by listening to people that are from those environments, people that have those lived experiences that are in there. So today we're going to learn about that. And then I just want to kind of give everyone some actionable points about how, whether you're a CEO of a company or you're an employee or you're just someone that's looking to get involved, there are a million ways that you can help break these cycles of systemic inequality outside of just writing checks or donating to charities, which I'm going to dive into as well. So for now, I want to start with Yahniie. Yahniie, do you want to tell us a little bit, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about, who you are and where you came from?
Hey. So I'm Yahniie Bridges, and I was impacted by way of the child welfare system and the juvenile justice system as a youth. And when I was incarcerated, I participated in a lot of different creative programs that actually changed the trajectory of my life and helped me create a support system that was actually a support network, because I didn't have that with my family. And essentially, I became a founding member of the Anti-Recidivism Coalition, which is how I found the application for Creative Futures and the first cohort. And I applied because when I looked at the application, it essentially was, it represented two things that was super important to me, which was creative arts or creative industries, and disenfranchised folks getting disenfranchised folks access, which was something that I had access to, but it was still minimal when I was incarcerated. And I felt like I shouldn't have had to be incarcerated in order to get access, the little bit of access that I did get for these opportunities. So that's why I applied. I completed the program, and then eventually I was invited, not eventually, but I was invited to work as a coordinator or to pull in nonprofit partnerships. And then later I was offered a partnership as a co-founder, which I accepted. But I did my futureship at Epidemic Sound, and my experience with Epidemic Sound was incredible. I thought it was beautiful. And personally, I felt like the only person who came from my side of town. However, it was extremely diverse and they were extremely welcoming, and I had a very positive experience.
Amazing. Thanks, Yahniie.
Spread.
When I throw over to you, Francine, do you want to tell us a little bit about your story?
Hello. So I'm Francine. I guess in a mouthful, I'll go back a little bit further and kind of let you know where the journey started. I am from Houston, Texas, and originally my long-term plan was to be a radio DJ or be in the entertainment industry somehow. When I was a child, I kind of knew that that's where I wanted to end up. I just didn't know how I was going to get there. So as I got a little bit older, I, ended up applying for college, went through the whole situation of, applying for colleges, FAFSA, applying for loans, applying for a 4-year university that I thought would get me into the entertainment industry. So I ended up going to college in Atlanta, which, is considered, I guess, the, urban Hollywood, the Black Hollywood. So I decided to move there and pursue my entertainment journey. And I just found out that just while accumulating so much debt at that time, struggling to pay for college while being a single mother was just something that was unheard of. So I ended up dropping out of college and giving up that dream of being in radio and television, because I figured if college was the only way to do so, then I guess I'd rather just try to get in somehow, just being an extra on the movie set or something. So I decided to give up that dream. Fast forward to me moving to Hollywood with my daughter, I figure, why the hell not? I'm sitting here working at a job that I figure is taking the life out of me, literally, before I got diagnosed with diabetes the day I actually moved to California. So I figure, all of this stuff is happening, I might as well stay here. My decision to stay on the West Coast ended in me actually becoming homeless. And my homeless journey with my daughter, being actually on the streets with her, had me come to like a fork in the road. Like, you gonna continue to try to live your dream, or you're going to try to survive. And I ended up taking that survival and learning how to tell that story. And it ended in me, well, it opted for me being an opportunity where I was just like, I'd try anything at this point. So I found a flyer at the homeless shelter for the Creative Futures program. And I figured that if I could get a job somehow in this creative industry, rather than trying to, somehow try to finesse my way through the industry through the back door, which I've always done, I figured this would be the change I needed in my life. So I applied for the program, and, through building a network, being vulnerable, becoming, susceptible to criticism, and allowing people to tell me what I'm doing wrong in life is something that I've never had. I've never had mentorship. I didn't have any type of guidance. And now I have a sense of community. And that led to me being able to have an internship at the World Surf League, opening my eyes up to a community that I would have never thought would have merged with mine. Like, I literally was in the streets. And I think that this not only saved my life, it kind of gave me a different point of view. And now I'm able to articulate my perspective now, and be open-minded that there's just more than one side of the story. And I'm being able to tell those stories. And that's where I would see myself, growing to. So,
just, because you did your internship at the World Surf League, but
yeah.
what happened the day you graduated? The day after you graduated?
Oh, so the day after I graduated, we had about, I believe it's 4 weeks here. I mean, at the internship, how long was?
A month, yeah, 4 weeks.
A month, 4 weeks. Within that time, I saw opportunity. As I look at life totally, I look at how I can take whatever I'm given and turn that into something. So I saw opportunity there, and was able to come up with a strategy to not only see how I could add value to the company, once showing that I could do it, and two, that I'm able to execute my plan. Because it's one thing to talk about it. I made it actually happen. So the day after my graduation, I had the CEO of the World Surf League. I brought in Black Girl Surf, which is a nonprofit organization that brings people of color to the water. And I saw a strategy to bring diversity to the company and incorporate that. So I set up a meeting between all three, and Jai was there. And that day they offered me a job on the spot. And I was just like, my heart was jumping out of my chest. I'd never in life actually envisioned myself doing anything in life successful. Like, I thought about it, but it's kind of like, when pigs fly type of situation. And that day port flew. So.
And you're still there today, which is amazing. And
still there.
We'll dive into some of the stuff and value you brought to the company. But Josh, I want to go over to you quickly. A little bit about yourself and where you are now.
Cool. Hi, I'm Josh. I grew up in La Puente, California. I lived in a house with a bunch of ladies. There's like 8 of them and me and my grandpa. And it was just me and my mom and my sister in one room. And I lived like that for most of my life. And then when I was like 11, my mom and my grandpa bought me a bass guitar for Christmas because my cousin had introduced me to Blink-182, and I was sold, and I wanted to be just like them, and I wanted to play music and have fun and do silly stuff with my friends. And that bass, I started teaching myself how to play that, and then I just never stopped. And then once it came time to go to school and stuff, in high school they force you to go to college and do the things and do the stuff, and I'm just like, nah, I don't really want to do any of the things. And but I did some of them anyways, or some of the steps, and then kind of came back and failed at the first try, and went to the LA recording school. And then I did all that and learned how to do all this music stuff a little bit better. And for a little bit, I actually worked at a recording studio, and then that didn't work out after a few months. And then like once you get out of that kind of thing, it kind of just dries up. But you're still stuck with the debt from the school you went to, because financial aid only goes so far, and then they trick you into signing up for more money. And so I was like, all right, I'll do that. And now I have I was sitting on that for the longest, and I was figuring out ways to put it off, like paying for it, and then it grew bigger and bigger, which was a silly mistake. The debt, yeah. And then yeah, I was working at a surf shop, and I met Charles, who had done the first cohort, I guess, right? I had met him a long time while I was working at the surf shop, but then we got closer, and him and I were doing jujitsu together. And you know, when you're friends with somebody, you complain about your life and you tell him all the things, and he was like, "Oh man, that sucks that you're dealing with that. Like you should talk to my friend over here, and he might be able to help you out and whatnot." And so he told me to apply for the Creative Futures things, and I wasn't sure about if I fit the bill or anything like that. But I took a shot. I was like, whatever. The surf shop was closing, and I wasn't gonna have a job, so I was in the middle of a freak out. I think Francine said something similar. It was like either go for it or like don't kind of thing. And I was at a point because I didn't know what to do after, and I was just freaking out about like, oh, what's next? Where am I gonna get money for all this stuff that I have to pay for that I don't have? And I was ready to quit making music because that wasn't, it didn't seem like an option anymore. Like 20 years later, it's like, okay, finally it's time to maybe be a grown up and get a regular job, whatever that would be. And then Charles was like, try this and see what happens. And I didn't get in the first time, but I guess somebody dropped out and there was a spot and you guys let me in. And I was all for it. I didn't know what to expect, and I didn't have any expectations, and I was just open to whatever opportunities came along. And I never
tell us where you did your internship.
Yeah, so I never in a million years imagined I would end up where I did. So Jais pulled me aside one day and told me who my internship was going to be with, and he said John Feldmann, and then I was like, why do I know this name? And it was the weirdest thing. And then he walked away, and I was like, sick, I'm gonna Google it really quick, and I did. And then I was like, oh my god, no way, that's insane. And then I was freaking out about that, and when you find out stuff like that, that's all you can think about. So for like,
so for some context,
like 2 months after, say it again.
Context. I just want to give there some context about who John Feldmann is.
John Feldmann is a record producer. He's the singer for the band Goldfinger. That's his band. They're awesome. They had a song in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, for anybody if they need a reference. It's called Superman. And I think Tony Hawk's putting out a movie, and they're re-putting out the game with the original soundtrack. So that's all cool. And he's like, I guess some of the most popular bands recently he's worked with are like Blink-182. He did their last couple records, and we're working on one right now, which is amazing. And then 5 Seconds of Summer. There's recently we did stuff with Travis Barker and some of the other projects he's working on. We did some of the Machine Gun Kelly stuff at John's house. They did a cover of Rage Against the Machine. That was the coolest thing to see come to life in like a day. It was so rad. So that's who John Feldmann is.
Tell us your first day. I've got to jump ahead a little bit here, but just tell us your first day in the internship, and then where you were a month later.
Yeah, so the first day, I came up and I brought all my stuff with me, and I sat down with John and we talked for a second, and I wasn't like, it was weird because like you never know how those kind of things are gonna go, and John is a really cool, interesting dude, and I guess it went okay. And then I was hanging out with him while he was recording vocals for the artist that was there, and and then I got to edit drums that they had recorded for that song, and Travis had played them. So like in my mind, I was like, oh my God, this is the craziest thing. And I had to figure out a way, because they were using a different program than the one I was using on my computer. So I had to figure out a way to do it on mine and then switch it over to theirs, and back and forth. But we made it happen. And then I think, yeah, that was the first day. And I think he showed up. Travis showed up. It's all, so many things have happened. It's all a blur kind of. I think Travis was there the first day.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that. I was like, that's amazing. From the band got you playing bass guitar, and
the
now
whole
the first
thing.
time
It was
there, and then, you know, a month later.
Oh yeah.
They offered you a full-time job.
Yeah, they I think the band went on tour or something, and they came back, and a spot had opened up, and they offered it to me, and
There you go.
That's that. But I also, like, when I started after that first day, I went every single day. Like, I didn't there wasn't a day I was not there if he didn't say I could. If he didn't need anybody, I wasn't there. Kind of, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I was there every day is what I'm trying to say. For that whole month, I was there.
Amazing. All right. So I want to dig a little bit into, you know, the breaking cycles now and the diversity, inclusion, equity stuff. Francine, you mentioned something earlier that when you went to the World Surf League, you kind of looked around the room and you saw you were the only Black woman in that room. What was that like for you? Because I know, for example, and this is one thing that we've learned, like I've learned this from you, that we thought originally what we were doing was we're going to help companies pull in, you know, talent from different backgrounds, from diverse backgrounds, but didn't really think about what it was like on the other side, like what it was like, not necessarily for the company, but for the fellows going in the room when, you know, you are looking around, no one looks and sounds like you. So what is that experience been like? And what have you learned from that? And what can companies learn from that?
Well, that experience, well, in a nutshell, I would say, oh my goodness, how do I put this into words? First of all, not only was it a community that was far polar opposite than anything I'd ever experienced before, like complete opposite. Here I am going into a space where I am the only person of color other than the guy at the front door. And it kind of felt like an awkward silence. But once the awkward silence was turned into a few hellos and a few voices turned into a few how you doing and who are you, how are you, it began to warm up. But I will absolutely tell you that I felt the elephant in the room when I first came to the World Surf League. And to me, that put fire behind me. That let me know that this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. Because whenever something's uncomfortable, that to me is just like, that means you're going through a transformation, you're going through a change. You know, I would turn that into, I guess, comparing it to like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. So I felt like I had to, you know, come through something to get to something. So I took it as, you know, maybe you shouldn't take it so personal. Maybe it's them having to warm up to you just like you're warming up to them. And I mean, it has just been the best experience I've ever been through. I love the surf community. I'm a part of it now.
Another question I've got for you, Francine, is what can you do to make it easier for people, the next generation coming behind you? I mean, you kind of like, do you feel pressure that, you know, as kind of like one of the only Black people, especially the only Black woman in the room, to create pathways and to help any company, any organization become more welcoming for the, you know, people come behind you? Because I know that's one of your strategies, or one of what you want to do is you want to be able to pull others up with you and create more spaces.
Absolutely. I want to be able to tell those stories. And that's actually what I'm doing now, especially me being a associate producer and then hopefully an executive producer soon of these documentaries and these stories where I'm able to show people where I come from and how I began my start and how it's possible. You know what I mean? Create jobs or create opportunities to where I am going deeper into these communities and providing an actual vision or something tangible where they can touch or they can obtain, where they can apply for an internship and or a program or an opportunity to share their artwork on my platform one day. That's how I feel like I've reached back, you know, because that's what coming to the World Surf League was for me. They basically created that opportunity for me. You know, they saw the passion, the drive, how I would add value to their company, and they took a chance. And that chance created a great outcome. And I'm so happy that even a year now, I'm still working for the company. And that's exactly what I would want to share for the next girl coming through, showing those stories.
Yeah, absolutely. Yahniie, over to you for a second. What do you think about that? I know we've had conversations, you know, like even when you come into meetings with us and we're talking to companies, you know, post-COVID, post-George Floyd, but like, is that pressure real? You know, going into a room knowing that, you know, you are the only Black woman in the room, and, you know, what that means, not just for yourself, but other people kind of coming behind you and other women in general.
There is pressure, right? I think because the cultures are so different. And I think as a woman, as a Black woman, I always walk into the space kind of trying to be honest about who I am and where I come from and be authentic, but also being mindful of how other people perceive me, and how other people may feel about what I'm saying about my experiences. And so when we had that conversation the other day, and Jai asked, like, do you guys have to do this often? Do you guys have to like really consider all of these different things before you step into a meeting? And it's like, actually, we didn't realize that it wasn't normal, but it is something that we have to consider. And we talk about like how to bring our authentic selves to the table without being offensive, essentially. But I think what's important for me, being in my history of being in leadership positions, is to remain authentic and to understand what it may feel like for a young person or a person who's coming, not necessarily behind me, but after me, and what would have made me feel more comfortable, reminding them to be authentic, reminding them and teaching them whatever I know, and learning from them. You know what I mean? Because I may think something and I may change it in the way that it was helpful to me, but that may not be helpful for the next person. So just staying open, I think, is the best way, and letting them know that we can relate.
Yeah.
I feel like it's my responsibility. I definitely do, because I feel like if you have a voice, and even if it reaches 5 people, 10 people, 25 people, that's a people that I was able to give my knowledge to, and the same knowledge that someone gave to me, 1 person, 2 people, maybe it took about 50 people before I finally listened to sit down and take advice. But I do feel like it's my responsibility for the generation coming behind me. And I have a daughter, a 12-year-old at this point, and I feel like she's watching everything that I do. So if I'm able to show her the strength and the perseverance that it takes, and the audacity that it takes sometimes to get results, then, you know, I feel like I've done my job. So that when I talk about legacy, that's what I mean by legacy. I'm able to leave that behind. So I feel like it's my responsibility. So it's not a pressure. I feel like it's something that I'm supposed to do.
Okay, thank you. I want to kind of piggyback on that, and about, like you mentioned, your daughters, but I'm thinking about like future generations, right? And this is something that I have an opinion on, so I'm going to kind of share an opinion and then I'm going to open it up to get your opinions on. But I think it's important because of the room that we have today. So, you know, post George Floyd, we see a barrage of press releases, social media posts from entertainment companies, specifically music companies, and everyone's trying to outdo each other. And there's $100 million donation from Warner, there's a $100 million donation from Sony, there's all these companies donating money. And for me, I kind of look at that and I go, okay, that's great. These organizations need money, donations are good, but the key thing that's missing for me personally is investment. donations aren't investments. And if you're looking at your communities where each of you come from, it's like, how do these companies actually invest into these communities? And I'll tell you what I think. It's pretty simple jobs, right? Like, instead of giving $100 million to this and that, like hire people from the communities that, one, are making the music that is bringing in most of your revenue now, right? We talk black music from those communities, but you look at what giving good jobs, not like the shitty frontline jobs, careers, right? So I want to kind of, like, what does it mean to give someone a career? What does it mean to give someone purpose? Giving people jobs that have access to healthcare. I mean, that's a huge thing, right? If you're talking about breaking systemic inequality. So yeah, what opinions on these companies that will pledge hundreds of millions of dollars that is a tax deductible donation anyway, that they were going to give away, but they've just kind of put in this bucket versus, yeah.
I think that's been the story of like, oh, this is something that's popular. Let's support it. I think that it's always, and I've said this before, that it's an internal look. It's a look at what the company looks like internally. Like, yes, you can give this donation. Yes, you can do this, and this will be helpful in some ways. But if you do not open the doors, and if you do not look at yourself, which is like, that's just the theme of that. I mean, that should be everybody's practice, to look internally, but just to look at your company. And is your company reflective of where your donations are, right? Because you can, and I say that even about our personal lives. Like, if our personal lives are not diverse, like if we don't have diversity in our personal lives, then that makes me question, or even whoever, if I see something and I see, oh, you work in the hood, but you don't really have any friends that are reflective of my community. You know what I mean? That's always something that I look at when I see people doing a lot of work, philanthropy, activists, or whatever. And I'm just like, what does your personal life look like?
Yeah. What about, you, again, and sorry to cut you out here, Josh, but I'm just going back to the, Francine and Yahniie, both, single with teenage mothers and single mothers. I mean, what about for your daughters? I mean, I was talking to a company the other day about, the younger generation, because we work with 18 and over people jobs, but the younger generation, right, having visibility, you're a product of your environment, right? So companies were talking about, well, how do we get the younger generation to know that just because of the circumstances they were born into, that there is a pathway, there is an opportunity to work at this record label or this film company or whatever. And I think, I guess, in your communities, Yahniie, I mean, with your daughter, but like, is it truth there? If they can't see it, they don't think that they can get that?
I believe that that's absolutely true. I think growing up, for me, I grew up, my father was in prison. My mother, I was in foster care living with my grandmother. And it was just a lot of violence. It was a lot of gang violence in the house. It was a lot of just everywhere. And so my view of entertainment or creative possibilities, we're all looking at magazines, like looking at magazines, watching TV, watching MTV Cribs, right? A world that was just not our world at all, right? And being like, damn, like, what is this like, right? Fast forward, experiencing some trouble, due to the trauma that I experiencing some trouble going into juvenile justice system, and then getting access to these types of opportunities. And I realized, and so ever since I've been a parent, my daughter has had access and seen, and she doesn't understand, like when we walk into a mansion, or she doesn't get it. And I'm just like, we didn't have that, honey. Like, we didn't have that. And growing up, going to all these panels, and I kind of drag her with me all the time. And now her possibility, like when I was younger, what I wanted to be was like a social worker, a probation officer, a teacher. Those are the things that I saw, right? Those were good jobs to me, and they still are. They're still very good jobs. But my daughter has access. She's met so many people, and she's been exposed to so many different things that she's very talented, and has an array of options versus me, what I grew up with.
So essentially you're saying if you gave people jobs and opportunities, their kids and their communities and cousins and siblings would be able to see that.
everything. It's a huge ripple effect. It's a huge ripple effect because even when I go back to my community, I'm the one who made it out. Even in my family, like being the first to travel to Africa, being the first to, go to DC or wherever, like those things are huge in our communities. And being the first to work a job that is actually giving back to the community. Because sometimes, it may be that one person who made it out, but they're not coming back to give back. And so seeing that we can give back, we can stay, we can be successful, and we can come back, I think it shifts and it changes the community because you're giving more opportunities, and those opportunities, I then help my mom do a thing, and my mom is doing a thing, and my brother's doing a thing, and everybody. It's a ripple effect.
Mhm.
Yep. I want to go back to kind of what I touched on earlier about like the work that we work in and the work that we do isn't like, we don't see it as charitable, right? We don't see it as a handout. Like, Josh, you didn't get your job because John felt sorry for you. You got it because you're incredibly talented, right? Francine, you didn't get the job because the World Surf League felt sorry for you.
Oh, absolutely not.
Got it because you're incredibly talented and you bring in a ton of value. And we're really adamant about that. But I'd love to talk to each of you. I'll start with you, Josh, about how important, like, obviously your lived experience, but what's something that's like from your lived experience? Because I mean, you're going to Calabasas every day, right? You're in a gated community, this private, beautiful studio, and that's not your everyday life. I mean, it is for work, but what's an experience that each of you have had that have brought value to the companies that you're working at? I'll start with you, Josh.
I think so. I mentioned that I grew up with my grandpa, right? And and both of us were always trying to get away from the rest of the house because there's so many people in there. And he was really resourceful, and like he could make anything out of nothing. Like he would find bits and pieces, and he'd bring home a pallet from somewhere, and he'd be like, "Why do you have that? What do you?" And then all of a sudden, there's a house in the backyard, and you're like, "What the heck is going on?" So like, I think and like the way I am, like I teach myself stuff. Like when I was a kid, I auditioned for like the xylophone thing. They didn't let me in for some reason or whatever. So I was like, well, I guess I got to learn this stuff for myself, So the same thing. I think right now at the studio, like an example of that, we built a whole podcast for John's wife. Like she's just started a whole new thing, and I built the whole thing. I taught myself how to edit and put together a podcast and video versions of it. So the whole, like just that resourcefulness and teaching yourself and just go and find a way. That's like a big thing for me.
Can you tell me some of the guests you mentioned it earlier? I just want to do a little name drop. Some of the people.
The first guest she had on there was Jerry O'Connell, which was the funniest thing in the world. A guest we just had recently that applies, I guess, to music is Juliet Sims. She was on The Voice in the season 2, and she got all the way to second place. That's a cool episode, and she talks all about how that whole like audition process was, and like how they lock you up in a hotel for 2 months or however long they do.
Yeah,
it's really cool to see all that stuff, and it's really fun to be the one making it, I guess. Like, I don't realize it sometimes because I'm like so caught up in it, but like I'm totally putting it all together, so it's fun.
Love that. Congrats, man.
Thanks.
Francine, what about you? What's some of your lived experience that has brought value into the WSL?
Well, I guess through this whole journey of me articulating through my now professional career, I've been very transparent about my journey with homelessness. And I think being homeless in LA, somewhere where you're trying to achieve your dreams, also while leading another person, a child, me being a single parent, is a different kind of pressure. You know what I mean? So I think with being homeless, you have to have a certain audacity. And I think it kind of brought me to a point where I was open to trying all different kind of things. So throughout that journey, I actually found out that my daughter had an opportunity to apply to private school through a program that helps, underserved communities actually be able to have the opportunity to go to an independent school that wouldn't traditionally go to. So my daughter and I went through the whole process of applying for private school, so we became a part of this community that was all of the African American and or people that identify with being of color in the independent school system, which is not that many. And my daughter got to, become a part of a community that's pretty exclusive. The kids of, sports celebrities and A-list entertainers, music stars. And, while name dropping isn't important, my daughter kind of, one day she's hanging out, on a private jet, and the next day we're sleeping in the airport because we don't have anywhere to sleep that night. So my daughter kind of watched my courage and audacity carry us through a very sensitive time. And once I got to the World Surf League, I was able to use one of my connections, which was through the private school community, one of LeBron James's production company, and Uninterrupted, and introduced them to the World Surf League and kind of merged them together. Now they have a partnership, and just little things like me using my personal life, milestones, able to bring that into a company. And that's how I think I'm able to add value, because I never thought that I'd have the audacity to introduce myself to anyone. And not only that, it was the president and his wife from Uninterrupted, and how they loved surfing and wanted to get into it, and told me how LeBron and his family wanted to get into surfing. And I kind of just opened that door and began that dialogue. And I think that's how my lived experience was something that I can say that was a trophy, me going through that trial.
And I think, I'm going to raise something specifically because I'm so proud of you about this. We all are. But, also at the World Surf League, they brought in Eric Logan, who's now the CEO. But before that, he was running Oprah's network, the OWN network. And he came in with an idea about wanting to create more content, kind of turning the WSL into like a media company. And they wanted to do these documentaries, and you kind of touched on it before, called Transformed, which is about, showing diversity through surf. And they had this one story about Giovanni, who's, an African-American guy from South Central LA that kind of, found surfing. And they had this story they wanted to tell, but they realized that they didn't feel they had the authenticity to tell the story. Do you want to kind of pick it up?
Oh, absolutely. And then we kind of, when they introduced having a platform to be able to tell these stories of diversity, and they said, we have this guy from named Giovanni from South Central, I'm just like, all eyes are on me, like I kind of felt like the representative to be able to tell authentically how we're going to be able to tell this story in a not only authentic light, but from a perspective that's not just one-sided. Everyone at the WSL looked the same. You know what I'm saying? Their platform looked the same, their social media looked the same. And I just feel like being able to have another voice in the room that didn't feel like the elephant in the room, but kind of felt like it was a barrier or something they wanted to get off of their chest that they now felt like they could. So I always think like it's something that people try to walk on eggshells with. And I'm just like, it's something we can discuss. Okay, he's from South Central, he's Black, and he just happens to be a bomb-ass surfer. So let's tell these stories. And I just feel like being able to have a seat at the table was an opportunity to show those in my community, Giovanni's community, the WSL, and now moving forward with the next season of Transform, which introduced Black Girl Surf. Now we have people that can say, hey, she looks like me, he looks like me. These are real stories. I can now see myself in that position. And to me, like I said, is my responsibility. And I'm so happy I was able to do so.
Yeah. And I should also note that that's 3 months after you got your job there, you had an associate producer credit.
Absolutely.
It was a dope film too.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Giovanni just started following me yesterday on Instagram, and I was so happy.
Cool.
All right, so I want to talk about actionable steps now. Like, we got people watching. This isn't an ad for Creative Futures. This is talking about what people can do. Francine, very quickly, I want to go back to you because I find this incredibly amazing. But you've told me stories, and I've actually seen you do it. But when you were homeless, and you were going through all the stuff that you have gone through and the adversity you faced, you were using your food stamps to give food for other homeless people and volunteering a safe place for youth and Meals on Wheels. You know, a lot of people always talk about, I'm going to give back, I'm going to make an impact when I have more resources or I have more money or I have more time. Like, one, why is it important for you to do that? Why is it important for you when you don't have anything or when you had nothing to give people that you think need it more? And any advice for people that want to take action?
Absolutely. I think it was important at that time for me to actually take a break and just and look at life. I was one of those people that I call the invisible homeless. I didn't necessarily fit the criteria of what you would think a homeless person would be, with the way that I dressed and or the lifestyle that I lived, while not having a place to lay my head every day. And I think a lot of times when people find out the right photo op or the right Instagram photo, the right caption, beyond all of that, you have those people who are actually out in the field and living this life. And I found it important to use my resources, like, you know, going to food banks and sharing that food, and or going to different drives and getting, you know, feminine products and sharing that with women out on the beach and or young ladies that I meet who were in the same situation as me, but wouldn't get help because it takes a lot of audacity and courage to, one, be young and I guess somewhat put together and be hungry and need help and be vulnerable. So I think when people say that they really want to help, I think it's actually rolling up your sleeves and getting out there, getting in the field, you know, being a human, connecting human to human. You know, it's going to be more than just a hashtag one day. Like, I'm not with the bandwagon, and I don't like to jump on to like whatever's popular. So I think even while I was struggling, I felt like it was my karma. It was my duty, like I said, my responsibility to know and to learn everything I could and try to pass that on. So that's what I think is important.
Piggyback on Francine, what you were saying, like, also, it's not easy work, right? It's heavy, and understand and be willing to have those conversations that are super, super difficult. Be willing to experience things that are not okay. When I go back to teaching the juvenile halls or wherever I am, and I see experiences, I just watched the girl get dragged out of her apartment by the LAPD the other day, which was reminiscent of my situation. And what's that? Oh, sorry. I have to process these things, and we have to process the things while we're doing the work. You know what I mean? And so, and sometimes take a break, but do not be easily discouraged because of how heavy it is.
Yahniie, I want to kind of piggyback on that now, because I think there's a few things I want to get answered as far as actionable steps of people. One is, a lot of people might be watching this and saying, okay, well, yeah, I'd like to bring people from underserved or disadvantaged communities and give them an opportunity at the company, whether I'm the CEO of a company, I'm running a company, or I work in a company and I kind of want to knock down the door of HR or whatever and say, hey, we need different voices in the room, right? So one of my questions is, what can people do at any level to get involved in breaking these cycles of systemic inequality? The other question is, people, you know, one of the things that we do these lived experience workshops. We talk to companies about your experience. We talk to people about Francine's experience. So like a bunch of our fellows have different experiences. You know, just because you and Francine are Black women does not mean you've had the same experiences in the same lives. Very, very different experiences. And I think it's important for people to understand that and learn from that. So for people that like maybe, you know, are from privileged areas and don't have friends or something in certain communities, how can they reach out, right? How can we learn? Because it's all about education, right? It's all about learning. So, sorry, two-pronged question for you, but one, what can people do to take action? Two, how can they learn more about, you know, communities they don't understand and want to understand?
Go ahead. Who's gonna go? Francine, Josh?
Oh, no. Wasn't you, Yahniie?
Oh, it's on me? Okay. Well, one of the ways, you know, one of the ways I think that helps is for sure tapping into your network. For one, I think you have to find out like what you're passionate about, whatever that is, because we don't want to hop on bandwagons. Right. So whatever it is that you are authentically passionate about, find whatever that is. If you're an artist, what is your skill set? What ways can you maybe give back, and find that? then I think utilizing your network, tap into your network, tap into and share your network. I think that's important. That's how we get through by with each other. Becoming a mentor. Mentors are so vital to me because you got to remember my background, my parents' lives look way different than mine. I am the one who broke the cycle. My sister and my siblings, and I showed my older siblings different options than they had as well. So it's super vital. And without my mentors, I would not be here. Without the mentors that Creative Futures had, like I wouldn't even be in this position as well. So I think that that's huge. Opening up positions and things at your companies or at your friends' companies, just having them have those conversations, but also because we are so different, right? We are so different, making sure that you tap into a Josh or a Francine or a Yahniie to provide, I know with Creative Futures, we provide support for the language barrier or the cultural barrier. Let's talk about the cultural barrier, right? It's not really a language barrier. So we provide support to help as a liaison for folks who don't understand each other necessarily, and there may be a communication barrier.
And then the second part, but just about like, how can people kind of learn more about different communities, different people?
I mean, our lived experience workshops will do that, but also, like I said, like Yahniie, like somebody with lived experience. Somebody with lived experience and have authentic conversations. I know we're willing to have them. Like whatever it is, some people may not be open, and that's fine. Just find a way. And as you ask the questions, the people will come to you. The folks, like the opportunities will come once you start to put the question out there.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to mention, like being open and willing to ask the question. Because like, I know for myself, being scared and anxious and stuff, like it's held me back a bunch of times in my life. And now, like I kind of, not that I'm good at it, but sometimes I'll be like, hey, I want that thing. Can I have that? And then all of a sudden it happens. And so like just not being scared is a big thing, and just go for it. Whatever that thing is.
Right, absolutely. Josh, while I got you, how do you plan to use your platforms to create opportunities for others now moving forward?
It would be cool. It would be cool to if people, like I could mentor more people. That would be fun, because like I don't have a lot to give, but I have a lot of knowledge, and one thing I think is important. Like I used to send people songs and things, and they would send me back feedback, but it wouldn't be enough, I guess. Like they would say, oh, you need more of this, but they wouldn't explain what that this thing was. It was they would always say more production, and I didn't really get what that meant, because I was like, I'm producing it. What do you mean more production? Like what more are you talking about? So like, so that's what I mean by like asking, like, oh, ask, like, hey, what are you saying? Like and it would be cool to be a better mentor for other people than I've had. I would definitely be interested in that. And I want to make a lot of things to make the world better. I have this idea for outdoor restaurants that are designed a little bit better, so we can all breathe and have more fun outside rather than inside of a stuffy building and get all sick. You know, I want to do all kinds of cool stuff. But definitely helping anybody that ever has a question can always hit me up. drchocolatepudding.com where you could find me at all times and ask me anything you want.
Awesome. Francine, your future, what do you want to do? What change do you want to make?
My future, I want to be able to continue telling stories for little people like me that have a dream and an imagination as big as mine, but have been through a lot of bull crap, and not to be told that you have to be perfect or fit a cookie cutter structure in order to make it to the top. It's not just one formula. And I feel like as long as you keep trying, you know, and reach back and bring somebody else up, you've done your duty. So I want my daughter to be able to watch these stories and be able to have faith in the future and the audacity to make change.
Period.
Yeah.
Shout out to Aaron and Naima really quick.
Yes, Aaron and Naima, our girls.
And what about you, Yahniie? What's your...
So what I've realized one of my skill set is being a connector. And one of the themes of why I do what grounds me is the word access. And I believe access is the best opportunity for change, period. Once you give people access, keep getting people access to the resources that they need, whatever those resources may be. That's my goal. And right now the focus is really to show people from my community that we can take these opportunities and kill them.
Yeah. And I think a big part there is like, we talk about access, and this is what you're amazing at, Yahniie, and I kind of want to paint a picture for everyone, but we talk about access because, you know, that's kind of what we do is we open doors and we get people in the building, we find workarounds, but support is a big part as well, right? I mean,
Yes.
Francine, when you started the World Surf League, we were on the phone like every day, because every single day was a new adventure for you because you hadn't been in a corporate environment before, you know what I mean? And being able to support you on that journey. But Yahniie, like what you do for people like our fellows coming through, you know, a lot of our fellows start with us, they're in survival mode, right? So it's, they're looking for a professional opportunity, but they also might need help in their personal, whether it's mental health or whether it's finding, you know, a resource to help get them dental care like you did with Tony and stuff like that. I just think that what you do there is amazing. I just wanted to give you a shout out because that's really important as well, right?
Yes.
It's the access, but it's that support and knowing that, you know, knowing that people have that, I think is really important. And that's kind of where I think companies can learn, right? Like, I know we're going to wrap up, but I think with organizations, you've got to think about, yes, we want to look at diverse talent. We want to create a pipeline. But how can we support that talent once it's in the building? How can we make that talent feel welcome? And I think that's where you've got to start. Because we can help you with the talent, but you know, you've got to start thinking about those things. Anyway, I want to quickly wrap up. Thank you guys so much for your time. If anyone wants to get connected with Yahniie, Francine, Joshua, or myself, learn more about Creative Futures or just about their individual journeys, feel free to reach out to me. Jai at creativefuturescollective.com, or Josh can connect you, and I'll connect you with everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Guys, thanks so much. This was really great.
Thank you.
Appreciate all of you.
It was fun.